Here's Henri Camara, who scored in normal time, and he scored in extra time. And Senegal are through to the quarter-finals of the World Cup.
Yeah. Welcome back to Amos Talk Sport with me, your host, the marvelous RUC. I am Amos, and you're listening to, of course, Amos Talk Sport. And in fact, before we go into the podcast, I would like to remind you to do the needful. The thing that you need to do before you listen to the podcast, the thing that you need to do after you listen to the podcast, the thing that you need to do as you listen to the podcast, the thing that helps a guy like me out, which is to rate and review the podcast. But I'm going to ask you another favor on top of that, which is please, let people know about the podcast. Tell your friends about it. Tell your workmates about it. Tell your schoolmates about it. Tell your, whatever it is that whoever it is that you can tell, please do let them know about this podcast. Tell them that this podcast called Amos Talk Sport, that I think you if you listen to, you will like. And so please do that. But in terms of the podcast today, what do we have on the podcast? I talk a bit about, what is there? Let me see. The Manchester City ban. There's also the Ziyech to Chelsea thing that I wanted to let my thoughts on that move known. And what else is there? I think there's a bit of Botswana football in there. I'm talking about the Jwaneng Galaxy story where there have been reports that Jwaneng Galaxy have fired Miguel Da Costa. I let my opinion be known on that, and also a bit of the Bundesliga, but it's not really analysis in terms of the Bundesliga. I did watch the football, and again, it's pretty much like this same thing that I always say when I talk about the Bundesliga, which is I give a lot of praise to them for the wonderful football that I've been enjoying in the Bundesliga. So there's a bit of that. And that is pretty much it. But do listen to the podcast. I think it's going to be a bit longer. I'm not sure. But so do listen to the podcast, and do make sure you do the right thing again. Rate and review the podcast, and let people know about the podcast. You know, the funny thing about football is a business, right? We can all understand that football is a business, but somehow people want to act like it should be treated differently from all other businesses. Why am I saying this? Manchester City were banned. It's pretty much old news at this point, but what interests me about that is there are certain bodies, and I'm talking about, I forgot what the body of the UEFA organization, which is responsible for this, for enforcement of what they call financial fair play rules, like FFP, right? And the thing about businesses, anywhere in the world where you are allowed to go and seek investors, right? You are allowed to do business, like it's in business, we applaud people for going out and finding investors and getting those investors. Like, the more you can get out of your investors, the better, right? You are very good at business if you can convince someone to give you money. Which is exactly what Manchester City and teams like maybe Chelsea have been doing, have done very well. And because football is a tribal sport. Every sport probably is tribal, but there's so much tribalism in football. There's a point where people act like teams are not supposed. Like, if we do not like what you are doing, we can, because we are part of a different tribe, we are going to say what you are doing is wrong. Like Manchester City, teams like Chelsea, teams like PSG finding investors. And you know what? There are going to be people who are going to be saying, oh, look at the morals of the people who own these teams, or the Saudis and all these things, because we have seen it all in the media. But just think about it. Do you really care? I think I heard something about what's his name? Brendan Rodgers talking about there are a lot of people who care. People don't really care. Like, there's a lot of outrage, fake outrage going on, but people really just don't care. They don't care where the money is coming from. In fact, if Manchester United were about to be taken over by a Saudi prince or something like that, the fans will be happy because they are thinking, oh, now our teams are going to spend. That is like even Newcastle fans, you'll be happy to hear that you are going to get some investors who are going to spend. But that is not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is the hypocrisy, what I like to call legislating taste. Because like I said, the football is a tribal sport. People like what they like when their team is doing it, right? People will say like Manchester City are buying their trophies. Like, think about it. Manchester City is probably one of the, if not the most well-run team in the Premier League, up there with Liverpool, right? I think I've said this before in the podcast. But people will say, would then just look at where the money is coming from. But like I said, if you are in business, you are looking to bring in investors. That is what business is. And because, I think Miguel Delaney said this in the Independent podcast, I think it's the Independent Football podcast. He said that, he said about something like the traditional big teams, you cannot compete with these teams for fans. And the only way to compete with these teams for fans is to bring in investors. And bringing in investors is not something that is not wrong in a business, because football is a business where customers are fans. And Manchester City, I think we can all agree, have been able to bring in fans, because people are going to say, they are plastic fans, but they are fans, because fans go where there is success. And you can say people are glory hunting, but did you support your team, Manchester United or whatever team it is that you are supporting, because they were losing? No, you supported your team because they were winning. So people are not glory hunters that because when they came into the league, they supported the team that was winning, and that was Manchester City, which proves that it's a good model to follow in terms of teams that do not traditionally have large followings to follow, to say we're going to take a piece of the market, we're going to take a piece of the customers, we are going to bring in new fans. And to bring in new fans, we cannot do it just by coaching. We have to then find investors who are going to help us get to the same level as your Liverpools and your Manchester Uniteds. Because Manchester City are on the same level right now, but because people are legislating taste, people at UEFA are legislating taste, they are going by, what do we like? Do we like it when people bring in success, or success via bringing in investors, or do we like it when people, the romantic way of bringing in fans by the traditional way, the traditional teams, by being the traditionally bigger team? Like, it's all business. Manchester United became what they are right now, having many fans, because they were doing good business moves. They did a good business move by I don't know, is it joining the stock market or something like that, so that they can have money? Because I don't think Manchester, the city of Manchester itself is that big where Manchester United can, just be a big team because they were able to get in fans from Manchester, from the city of Manchester. So it's business. It's all business. It's different ways of doing business, So the whole thing of saying, I don't like it because Manchester City have brought in investors, they have bought their success. It's all business. It's all business. Everything Manchester City and Manchester United have done to be where they are is by good business practices, which bring in customers, and those customers are fans. And like I said, Manchester City have been able to bring in fans because they have been successful, and they've brought in a coach who is very good and is able to take them where they would like to be. And now to then break that down, because we do not like that method, because you can say like the financial fair play guys, they are talking about, oh, we are doing this to protect teams against themselves. No, you are not. Is it the only way to enforce to protect teams against overspending? Is it, or is taking a team out of the competition the only way they could do that? No, they are doing this because they don't like teams like Manchester City. They do not like teams like PSG and all these teams. And you will say, this is ruining football. Is it really ruining football? Is it nicer when it's Manchester United that is winning everything? Because that is what people want. Clearly, they want one team to be winning. But when it's a different team, a team that has done business in a slightly different way, which is winning, then people say, no, that is not the way we want to do it. And then so we are going to create rules, because you could say that they're saying that it's to protect teams against themselves, but really, there's something that I read the way they said one of the UEFA president, I don't know if like one of the higher ranking officers. They were saying about we don't want financial doping, which again goes back to legislating taste. You do not like it when people bring in investors, which you call financial doping, right? You want it to be done by the way that the traditional big teams have been doing it, which is also at some point they were doing it because they did it in a smart way, business wise. Everything comes from doing things the smart way, business wise, so that you can afford who the players, the playing stuff, the coaching stuff. It all comes from that. It's not like the team where it's based in a region where there's so many fans, and so they can take all the gate money and all these things. Like, the world is changing, you know. We are now living in a world where if you are doing business well, if you are a well-run team, like right now, if you look at the well-run teams, they're doing well. Even Leicester City, because they're a well-run team, they can invest in the ways that they invested. So it's all business. It's different ways of doing business, and you are looking at that and you say, I don't like that, and so we are going to make some rules or regulations against that. So for me, the whole Manchester City thing, for me, it doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I don't think it's the UEFA rules are made in good faith. They are not there and enforced to be at the benefit of teams. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So in keeping with the theme of old news, discussing old news, it's not really old news. Maybe I am fronting, but Chelsea have signed Ziyech. You probably have read this already, but I was kind of worried about Ziyech. He's a player that I like. Also, I like him like every other Chelsea fan who have seen him play. I've been impressed with him. He's 26, so he's not a youngster anymore. But sometimes, you know, when people are happy to see someone leave, like Ajax are. Like Ajax, they've been like on social media, like they're even saying something like, there was something like, you have to believe in his magic first. And then, I don't know, like, I do not like the fact that there's conditions to Hakim Ziyech, you know? And for the fact that he is 26 and he's been playing at Ajax, which like traditionally is a big team, as if I give a fuck about traditional big teams anyway. But the league itself is not really to that level. But the fact that he has been there kind of makes me worry about him. Like, I was reading, in fact, I have it in front of me here, from the Standard UK. They were talking about this guy has an ego, like Frank Lampard has to manage his ego, and I honestly do not like players who have let me read the quote. One of that journalist said, I think his name is, I'm going to butcher it. The butcher were African names anyway, so I'm going to butcher his name here. It says Hin Nooijens, probably Nooijens, a Dutch journalist. He said, he says, he's quite a proud guy. He's the finest player in his side, and he wants to be treated as such. He has had some collisions with Ajax manager Erik ten Hag. And, you know, that makes me worry. Like, the whole thing about this current Chelsea team is all about, what's the word? Where people are in the side on merit and nothing else. And if you are not on merit, if you do not perform, Frank Lampard takes you out, which has been the theme throughout. Like, no one is too, even like the goalkeepers, he cost like 70 million. Frank Lampard took him out because he was not performing. And so you have a guy like Ziyech coming in, and he thinks he's going to be the finest player at Chelsea, and Frank Lampard says you are not playing well, or you are not training well, and so I'm not going to include you in the first team or in the starting 11. So, you know, it can create some imbalance. It can create some trouble in the team, you know, because, for example, what's his name? The kid, Christian Pulisic. When Christian Pulisic came into Chelsea, the Chelsea side, I was one of the people who were saying that, you know, Christian Pulisic is not performing, and so he should not be playing, rightfully so. And people were saying, you know, play the kid because he's American. You have to play him for market, whatever. And Frank Lampard was like, this guy is not performing. And I was also like, I'm with Frank. He's not performing. And you have Ziyech, and Pulisic, he came back and he did what he had to do. He worked, he put his head down and he worked. Humble kid. You knew what he had to do and he did what he did. And now when he was injured and people were saying, and I agree with this as well, Chelsea were missing Pulisic. And I'm happy for that. And you have someone who has an ego, who's probably going to be like, he's not performing, he still wants to start anyway. And Frank Lampard is going to want to put him on the bench and say, you have to earn your place in the first 11 like everybody else does. And like I say, I worry about those kind of things, those kind of players who kind of feel entitled because they think that they're superstars. And the fact that he was at Ajax for all this time and he's 26, he's only going to get out of there and he's going to be 27 probably when he's at Chelsea, kind of makes me worry, kind of makes me worry about what he's going to, like, there's nothing to worry about in terms of the kind of player he is, but as a character, like the whole thing about him having an ego makes me a bit worried, to be honest with you. But we will see. I'm a Chelsea fan, like I said, but we will see. We'll have to see. I'm excited to see him play, but I also have some concerns having read something like that. I'm coming home, tell the world that I'm coming home. So we're going back, we're coming back home here in Botswana. There have been news, and the news have been, and this has been on Facebook pages. So it hasn't come from like the media houses like Miri or The Voice and all those kinds of newspapers, but the news have been that Jwaneng Galaxy have fired their coach Miguel Da Costa, and to me that is like the most stupidest move you could ever make. Because I've said it in this podcast whenever I've talked about how Botswana football has improved and how the coaching in this country is of a higher level, even of a higher level than in South Africa, in fact. Then whenever I've talked about that, I've mentioned Miguel Da Costa. He is the coach that I like to say he thinks through games. Like, he prepares for games, and then as the game is being played, he also thinks through games and then manages the game and finds ways to tweak the tactics and make it work for his team. And the fact that Jwaneng Galaxy could fire such a coach, and if this is true, if this is to be believed, and I'm going to proceed as though this is the truth, and you can say, how could you do that? You are being very unprofessional. Who cares, man? It's the news anyway. Like, but if it's not true, then they're making the good decision. They're making the right choice. But if it's true, this is baffling to me. Like, he is the best coach in the country, and sure, he has lost, like, I don't know, is it 2 games or 3 in a row, and they have been knocked out of the Mascom Top 8 Cup in the semi-finals as well. So it's kind of like, what do you expect? Like, if you are in the semi-finals and you're playing against good teams, and in the league, I think he lost against Security Systems, which have been a very good team. So if you are going against these teams, in this top in versus the top sides, like there is a chance that you are going to lose as well. And I think the game that they lost to Security Systems at the weekend was their first home loss. So the whole thing of like acting like this guy has been terrible, or he hasn't been doing well. And in fact, I think in one of the Facebook pages, news pages, they were talking about they were quoting a player, and I don't know if this is like really true, but we're going to proceed like I said, like this is true. They were saying that there have been news that he has lost the dressing room, and then there was supposedly a player being quoted saying that, no, we love Miguel Da Costa. He said, and when I've seen them on the bench, there has never been a sign to me that could say, these guys don't like Miguel Da Costa, and this team is losing because they are not doing what Miguel Da Costa is instructing them to do. And in fact, because like I say, you can see through his teams that he thinks through games. So the fact that we can see that in the players changing the tactics and all these things shows that the players are with him and they follow his instructions to the T. So Jwaneng Galaxy, if they really did fire Miguel Da Costa, is one of the most stupidest things I could ever imagine any team really doing. And in fact, if I'm Township Rollers, I'm firing what's his name, Frank Natal or something like that, the British guy. Township Rollers have been terrible to watch. I mean, my goodness. When a team like I was saying about Kaizer Chiefs, like Kaizer Chiefs have been winning when they were winning because they've been losing lately. But when they were winning, it was like, you're not convinced that they won because they were playing well. It was just like you're winning or some luck shit. You won on some luck. And Township Rollers yesterday against Miscellaneous, they won on some luck shit. A rare mistake at the back for Miscellaneous. Was it Miscellaneous? Yes, it was Miscellaneous. A rare mistake at the back. So it's kind of like, I'm not convinced with them. I'm not convinced with Frank Natal. And I was like, maybe it's because, it's the first few games he's been with them. The tactics are not getting through, but I mean, my goodness, like it's been long enough now. His tactics should have already been there. We should be seeing, if at all he has some good football about him, we would have already seen it. And all the matches that I've seen Township Rollers play under him, Township Rollers have been totally shit. And I don't think if Township Rollers play like they are playing right now, they are going to get anything from the Mascom Top 8 final, against Orapa, because Orapa have been playing well, and ironically, is against their former assistant, long-term former assistant coach, Moromuzi Mpote, who has somehow been quite good. He has beat Miguel Da Costa, who I think is the best coach in the league, and Orapa playing like decent football. So yeah, that's local football. That's what I wanted to say about that, especially the Jwaneng Galaxy thing, which I just don't get. Like, it's truly I just don't get it, man. What Jwaneng Galaxy thinking? And people were saying that they are doing this to bring in Oris Radipotsane, and I don't know what has Oris Radipotsane done to to deserve to be placed as head coach above someone like Miguel Da Costa. So I don't know. We'll see, but I hope it's not true. But if it's true, if I'm Township Rollers, I'm taking that man in because I think he's the best coach in Botswana. Yeah. So Township Rollers were in fact were not playing Miscellaneous. They were playing Prisons 11. Miscellaneous were playing GU. So those were the two games that I watched, and I kind of mixed them up. But yeah, I've watched the Bundesliga again, which is part of the show now. It's something that I do now, and let me tell you, like I've said this before, I haven't seen a goalless game in the Bundesliga. And the team continued like 4-1 for I was watching the game. Let me check here. Which one was I watching? Gladbach against Dusseldorf. And again, no draws. No goalless games. 4-1, high scoring games all the way. And I'm starting to think about the Bundesliga. Like I would say, there's very few things, if anything, that you can criticize about the Bundesliga. But I'm starting to think these teams really do not defend. They score and they do all these kinds of things. And for a neutral like me who has no team in the Bundesliga, it's fun to watch. But if you are like one of the fans and you want your team to get somewhere, you're going to get worried. Like if your team cannot defend, it's never a good thing. If your team cannot defend, and you're going to the game and you are not sure what's going to happen because your team is probably going to let in 5 goals. It's fun for everybody else, but like there was a time when Liverpool were this kind of team, and you're like, if you are not a Liverpool fan, watching Liverpool is the most fun thing because you don't know what they're going to do. They can score 5 and concede 4 or 6, and it's the same thing with the Bundesliga. Like, it's fun for us as people who have no team, who have no horse in the race to watch it and enjoy it. But if you are like one of the fans in that team, for me, I think that is the only criticism that I can find about the Bundesliga. But for me, as a fan who doesn't really have a team in there, who doesn't have a horse in the league, I'm pleased to watch the games. I enjoy it. I look forward to the games. Dusseldorf against Mönchengladbach was a good game, another good game. Like, I haven't seen a terrible game so far. You almost think as if this open view games are like handpicked to make the Bundesliga look good, and it's not, because like these are not like the traditionally bigger teams, or maybe they are, but they are not the teams that, if you are looking at the table or if you are looking into the Bundesliga, you are thinking about off the top of your head. So I'm glad that we have that option. We have that option to watch the Bundesliga. So I think the open view. So I don't think I have anything much to say in terms of the analysis of the game, except to say there was this guy Marcus Thuram was absolutely excellent, and also to say the defending was atrocious, especially from Dusseldorf, because at one point I was seeing the goalkeeper. I was like, at first I was praising him because I thought he's a good sweeper keeper. He's happy to step out of his line to the edge of his box and play, and give options to his teammates to pass the ball to him. But at some point, I was seeing him. He did the thing. When center backs do that thing where they split inside the box, and one is on the other side of the box and the other is on the other side of the box. He himself was on the other side of the box where one of the center backs would have been, and just left the goal open like that. Like, there was nothing. Like, if the team intercept the ball as he passes it to the center back, the team would just have a tap in, and like, I was just like, this, what are you doing? Like, I know like the Bundesliga is famed for not for all their attacking football, but sometimes what they're doing there is kind of stupid, and I thought that the goalkeeper did something that was totally stupid there. And in any case, it's entertaining in any case. So I'm happy to watch the Bundesliga. And if you do not watch the Bundesliga, I implore you to go and watch the Bundesliga. And that is it for the podcast. Thanks for listening. I didn't want to do too much analysis. So anyway, thanks for listening to the podcast. Make sure you do the right thing, which is to rate and review. Tell your friends about the podcast. Tell them to subscribe. Tell them that there's this guy, this African guy, the African expert, as they like to call us. I don't see it anymore, where people call Africans who have an opinion on social media, calling them African experts. To discourage people from Africa from having any opinions, as if you are from Africa, you do not know anything about football. In fact, the best players in Europe and anywhere in the world, they are Africans. So anyway, that is the podcast. Thanks for listening.